How much black money is generated in India? How much of it is stashed abroad? A parliamentary committee has come up with an interesting answer. Basically, that we just don't know. It could be 7% of the GDP or 120% of the GDP. It could be $216 billion or $490 billion. Where does it come from? Could be real estate, mining, pharmaceuticals, gutka, pan masala. No mention of political funding, by the way, in this report. So what's the point of this report? Exactly. With black money taking up so much of our political narrative, with the government promising to hunt down black money and those who generate it or store it illegally, the paucity of any real information is worrisome. So has the government done enough to curb black money, or is it all a bogey? To speak more on this, I'm joined today by Professor Arun Kumar from the Center for Economic Studies and Planning School of Social Sciences, JNU. Of course, also one of the foremost experts of black money in the country. TP Oswal, Managing Partner at TP Oswal and Associates. MK Venu and Maithili Bhusnamuth also join us in this conversation. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Oswal, what is your take on the lack of information in this report, and the bigger question, of course, that is black money become a little more than just a political narrative that is whipped out every time there are elections? Has enough been done to curb black money?
Well, in my opinion, this report is purely an eyewash. I don't know what was the reason to come out with such a report. The government had already brought in a white paper on a black money long before, which was quite narrative and quite detailed one. And these three institutions, despite the fact that they have worked together, they have no estimate, no way to come out with the exact figure and or even a nearby figure. So therefore, this is all purely estimate and guesswork without any supporting, without any basis, and this is a irrational report. No doubt everybody knows these are the sectors which are generating black money. This report also says this is an interim report. Government can take find out an evidences, this and that, and then decide to take a line of action. I believe one thing comes out very clearly, that the report is on the events prior to 2010, and therefore this was the period when the government of India was run by a Congress regime, and therefore all this blame is, including the report, the chairman of the committee is Mr. Mauli, Veerappa Mauli, and he was a congressman. So therefore, obviously the report says that this is a report generated, black money generated prior to this period, and therefore there is no empirical evidence that anything about the current government. On the contrary, my opinion is all the steps taken by the current government has been narrated, listed out, and they have said it very clearly what steps they have taken.
Okay.
And they are genuinely steps with a great intent to remove the black money from the system.
The reason that the report talks only about black money till 2010 is because that's when it was commissioned by the previous government. And the parliamentary committee has members of all parties. In fact, it's interesting you mentioned this because there is a sort of blame game going on between the BJP and the Congress about black money. The Congress saying they've not done enough, the BJP saying that they've done a lot to tackle black money. Let's keep the report as a starting point for this conversation and come to what really has happened to tackle black money and some of the steps which have been mentioned in this report. The SIT that the government formed as soon as it took charge in 2014, of course, is one of the key steps as well. Professor Arun Kumar, your opening comments really on this parliamentary committee report and the huge variance of figures. It sounds astounding, which is why we're asking, is this a black money boogie? Can it be 7% of the GDP or 120% of the GDP? No one really has any clue.
Yeah, so this report, the three reports were commissioned by the government under pressure from the Anna Hazare and Ramdev movements.
Yeah.
And what happened was they were given a very short time to present their reports, and therefore they did not advise a new methodology. They depended on the earlier methodology of mimic approach, etc. And what has happened is that because they use different assumptions, they've got widely varying estimates of black income generation. So the problem that has come up is that unless you devise a new methodology to estimate the size of black economy, you're not going to be able to do it. And earlier, when you had the report in 1985, of which I was a member, we took 3.5 years to devise a new methodology which was applicable at that point of time. So this report is not only, not something new, it's not something which was required, but also analytically it is very weak because it doesn't give a proper definition of black income generation. It just borrows from Fage's definition of what the black income is in the advanced country, but that's not applicable in the Indian context. For instance, it talks about the informal sector, but most of the informal sector in the Indian economy is below the taxable limit and therefore doesn't generate black income. Similarly, it talks about, how much money is held abroad, and it suggests that there are 3 different ways in which you can look at the money abroad. But our own estimate is that only 10% goes abroad, and of that 40% is round trip back into the country. So what is left outside is not very large. So in other words, this parliamentary committee report is based on 3 reports which also had very little time. This committee also had very little time to process all this and to call in experts. It says that it didn't have enough time to call in other experts, so it calls itself a preliminary report. So in other words, this is not the right way to estimate the size of black income generation or the black wealth in the country or the black wealth had abroad. So this should be seen as a relatively very limited kind of a report from which we cannot draw conclusions. It also talks about the sectors in which black incomes are generated, but there again analytically there's a problem. Real estate is not the generator of black income, it is the circulator of black income. Unfortunately, the 2012 white paper on black economy also said real estate is the biggest generator of black income. That's analytically incorrect. So there are a lot of analytical problems with the report and with what it is saying. So it's not the basis on which we can go further and do something out of it.
Okay, so the report is flimsy, and I just want to take a second to talk about all of those sectors that Professor Arun Kumar is talking about and are mentioned in this parliamentary committee report. So real estate, mining, pharmaceuticals, pan masala, gutka, tobacco, bullion and commodity markets, film industry, educational institutes, securities markets and manufacturing are some of the methods or sources of black money. They talk about professionals as well. M.K. Venu, no mention at all about how Indian electoral politics is a generator of black money.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, that's the elephant in the room. And after so-called reforms that the previous that Modi government did 1.0, Modi 1.0, we have ended up with with electoral bonds being more non-transparent than ever. We don't know where the electoral bonds are coming from, and now most shockingly, Tamanna, now companies with foreign companies with 50% with a subsidiary here are allowed to sort of whether they come from Mauritius or wherever, they are also allowed to sort of buy electoral bonds. Now this happened after the amendment that BJP and Congress both helped themselves with in the Vedanta case, where when Vedanta had funded both of them, and it was in violation of the Foreign Contribution Act. So they retrospectively amended the law, saying that for foreign companies with subsidiaries in India can also fund political parties. Having said that, Tamanna, I would say that this report should have, more significantly, this report should have seen at least studied the impact of demonetization, GST, 2 big measures that were taken in 2016 and subsequently
but their cutoff was 2010,
and then sort of seen the impact,
No, the cutoff was 2010,
and seen the impact of those 2.
It's a hard-hearted. It seems like a half-hearted.
That's what I'm saying. Although the report is 2010, you could have seen the impact of demonetizing GST on these very sectors as they behaved in 2010, right?
But you don't know how much black money there is. If you read the report, and I'm sure everyone on our panel has, it's so vague. It's so vague, and you're right. It's like a collection of quotes just put together. I want to, TP Oswal wants to respond to what Venu is saying, but I want to get Maithili in and to the crux of this debate really. Why are we discussing this report, which we've already told our viewers doesn't have much meat in it? It's because black money by itself is a very powerful term. It's an important concept and it means a lot to Indians. especially when you're asked for bribes or you're pushed into a corner. That's your mental definition of black money, and the efforts to curb it have played in a huge part to the popularity of this government, which is why, let me come to my key question, Maithili. Do you think this government has been successful in beating down black money to some extent, and the methods that are mentioned in this report include the GST, the Black Money Act of 2015, the Fugitive Economic Offenders Act, the Benami Property Act, among others?
Well, this is a work in progress, Tamanna, and we have a long way to go. The fact is that the black economy, black income has been the bane of our political and economic life as an independent country, and I am sure this was very much there even prior to independence. The fact is that as we move towards things like GST, which leave an audit trail, and as we use more technology, it will become increasingly difficult for people to hide transactions. So, hopefully the day will come when you will get much greater clarity and you will have much less of a black economy. The very fact that you have three institutions of repute, the NIPFP, NCAR and NIFM, and come to such widely different estimates, and the report also says that there is no unanimity about even the methodology. Arun, of course, is an expert on the black economy, and though he talked about methodology, the fact is there is no agreement whatsoever among economists themselves on the methodology. The only thing we can agree about is that it is a very large part of the Indian economy. It greatly impairs our efficiency. We need to do something about it. The government has been trying, but it is a long way to go, but technology hopefully will provide at least 70 if not 80% of the answer.
Professor Arun Kumar, you agree with that? There is a long way to go, but this government is making efforts.
So, what would be a smell test for saying that we managed to tackle the black economy using demonetization, GST and various other things? It would be that your direct tax to GDP ratio would rise, your indirect tax to GDP ratio would rise. So, for instance, even if you don't assume a very high figure, you assume only 20% of the black economy, then if at the current rates of taxes, you should be able to raise your tax GDP ratio by 8%. Your income tax to GDP ratio has risen by only barely 0.25-0.3%, and your direct tax to GDP ratio has risen by barely 0.5% in the last 3 years. So that doesn't suggest that we managed to tackle the black economy in any substantial way. And let me say that since 1948, when the first committee on black economy was set up, we've had at least 30 different committees and commissions which have gone into different aspects of the black economy, and they made thousands of suggestions. We've implemented hundreds of these, including demonetization twice, including voluntary disclosure schemes, including bringing down the tax rates, direct tax rates from 97.5% to the current 30%. We have removed various controls like MRTP, FERA, various other such things, and yet the size of black economies continued to grow. Professor Caldor came in 55-56 and estimated the size of black economy then to be 4% of GDP. And my 2016 paper in EPW now suggests it's 62% of GDP, and some of the three reports also suggest that the size of black economy could be around 72% of GDP.
Yeah.
So the size of black economy has continued to grow in spite of the fact that we implemented various policy measures. The reason is that the black income generation is a political process. The involvement of the politicians is very important, but this report that we have from the parliament is not flagging that. It's not also flagged the issue of demonetization and the GST, even though it has come now in 2019 and its meetings were held in 2018 post demonetization and GST. So they could have looked at the impact of these things, but they haven't done that.
That's a point that Venu also made. I'm not too sure if it was in the ambit of what they set out to do, but I get your point that if they've discussed it now, how can you not talk about demonetization? Mr. Oswal, I want you to come in with the point that Professor Arun Kumar and MK Venu are making, where they're saying that there have been new rules, new laws, new committees, new commissions, demonetization happened, but they don't seem very convinced that it has done what it needed to have to tackle black money.
See, first of all, we are all hearing that a direct tax code will be presented in the next month or maybe August. I don't think any tax laws which are made in the routine manner like what it was earlier is going to tackle black money. Paper doesn't solve any problem. the government has been able to tackle the black money at the topmost bureaucracy level. But at the lower level, the rates have gone up. People are demanding 3 times because they are themselves not sure whether they will be able to, they will be caught or not. So therefore, this is all myth to say that there is no black money. Second thing, this government has shown their endeavor. This report talks of generation of black money up to 2010, but all the steps, remedial measures have been taken by this government. None of the steps taken up by the earlier government has been disclosed or has been recorded or has been reported in this report. All the steps have been taken by this government, and mostly if the black money is there in the foreign country, which the report says it is safeguarded through setting up of a trust abroad, and the black money is held in the trusts. But the question is that despite the fact that we have exchange of information which has been created with the government of the other country, we have signed tax treaties with all the tax havens to get the information and to collect the taxes. These are not exhaustive tax treaties. So therefore, the government is now endeavoring to get as much information as possible. We have received around 80,000 information of the black money account holders abroad, and the government is taking all the steps. And the recent circular issued by the government on account of the compounding of an offences, they have said if it is related to black money, we will not compound the offences. The government is day to day becoming serious and serious about black money, and all the steps have been taken in this regard.
Okay,
but the question is, say for example, you have given a political donations to the one sec, let me complete. If you take a political donations by giving a bonds to the political parties, it is generating in fact black money. It is rather legalizing the black money generated by political parties by taking these bonds and refunding and giving the cash to the donors, and therefore this is a serious issue.
No, so electoral bonds is a serious issue. It seems like a cover has been, a sort of veil has been placed for politicians in what they want to do. But I want to come back to the basic point, and Venu, you must respond to what TP Oswal is saying. His point is that whatever has been done by this government in its 1.0 version 2014 onwards. The report, which was chaired, the committee was chaired by Veerappa Moily, a senior Congress leader, also puts down that all the steps taken are in the Modi government. We've seen recently top bureaucrats being shunted out and penalized on corruption charges, and very strict action being taken. So yes, it's going to take time, perhaps not enough has been done, but A for effort for this government.
Yeah, Tamanna, I would say that the Modi government has made efforts that it has brought legal new legislations like the Black Money Act, Fugitives Bill, confiscating properties in case you suspect or you find that money has been taken out of the country, or the promoter himself has fled the country, which has happened in many cases. But Tamanna, the test of all the final outcome test of all this is that as Arun Kumar said, the tax to GDP ratio should go up. I don't see that happening, and I can tell you, somebody the other day I read somewhere that the Enforcement Directorate in the last 13 years has solved only 3 cases, brought 3 cases of money laundering, money taken out of the country to fruition, and its record of cracking cases it is so pathetic that I would be ashamed of projecting Enforcement Directorate to any other global institution.
Yeah.
So we still have to probably that's why the Modi government is shaking up the bureaucracy also. Let us see whether new, more efficient, more honest officers come in and do their job. At the moment, it's not happening yet.
Okay, that's an important point. One is booking people and showing that you're doing a lot. What is the outcome really? Maithili, you want to come in on this part of the debate, which is getting very interesting. Has the Modi government really done enough, or is it more about showcasing whatever they're doing?
Well, every government in a democracy will try to showcase its efforts, though the efforts may not have gone the full, had complete success. So yes, this government has been trying, and as I said, GST is going to be a complete game changer, because it leaves an audit trail from which is very, very difficult to hide. also, as I said, technology, information technology, the possible data mining that comes with the increased use of technology will make it very difficult for anybody to hide their transactions. Global information sharing is again going to be a very powerful factor which will help to bring all the culprits to the book. Most important, as Venu also mentioned, political funding. I think unless we clean up political funding, that is one area which is a source for a generation of a lot of black money, and I think we need to clean up that sector completely. But as I said, this is an ongoing exercise. There is no magic bullet and you have to keep working at it, because ultimately black money does worsen the efficiency of the economy. It introduces huge inefficiencies in the economy, apart from penalizing those who are paying their taxes and whose transactions are entirely above board. So, we cannot cease our efforts to go on tackling the menace.
No, absolutely. And one thing that all of our panelists agree upon is that it's quite hypocritical to talk about black money and sources of black money and pretend like politics and political parties have absolutely nothing to do with it. Electoral bonds perhaps have made it only worse. I want to thank all of you for joining us on this show today, and if any of you who are watching have a point of view on black money, do you think this government has done enough? Is it a lot of show? Can more be done? Please write in to us, tell us what you think. We're waiting to listen to you here on the India Development Debate. And no, we haven't forgotten about our campaign. We have committed to getting ideas together to solve India's water crisis. We're facing our worst water crisis to date. And just to show you how bad it is, take a look at this video. It's a startling video which has emerged showing Chennai, remember it's in the throes of the water crisis, its reservoirs are drying up. How long do you think that took? Just 1 year. The time-lapse video has been posted by a science and technology website, Gizmodo, and shows about 3 billion cubic feet of Chennai's reservoir water being lost in less than a year. Remember, water supply in Chennai's 4 reservoirs have dropped below 1% of their capacity, severely crippling the daily life of the people. The question is, did the local government know? Could they have done something? Is that going to be the only city? Do we have a plan? Write into us. Tell us what you think of how we can solve the water crisis. We want to get our viewers involved. We want to get governments involved. We want to get corporate India involved. If you know of any way to take this forward, let us know. That's all the time we have on the India Development Debate.